This is the Rebel Author Podcast, where we talk about books, business, and occasionally bad words. Hello, Rebels, and welcome to episode 266 of the Rebel Author Podcast. Today, I'm talking to A.L. Brody, also known as Jason Pinter, all about tentacle dongs. No, I'm kidding. It's monster romance. Well, I'm not kidding. We do talk about tentacle dongs. Oh, this is going to be an episode, clearly, for starting with tentacle willies. Okay, so just one comment on last week's episode. Chris said, loved this episode, much needed advice as I've been struggling this entire year with fear, burnout and perfectionism. Clifton Strength Achiever 1, Enneagram 1, the perfectionist goddess, help me. Oh, that's painful. Painful. Perfectionism is just, I think, the most brutal thing that we put ourselves through as creatives. Sorry, I'm now riffing, but Chris continues to say, not only was the episode helpful in putting things in perspective, but hearing the joy and energy back in your voice, Sasha, filled me with hope and hope that writing joy can be reclaimed. Yes. So I feel like I have the joy back because I have slowly come out of what was very nearly burnout, I have to say. Now, the conclusion that I've come to is that it wasn't a creative burnout, but it was a decision fatigue burnout. And I know that because today I have been working with my ops director, manager, goddess herself, and we have been going over the next Kickstarter, which is the Girl Games Kickstarter. And I swear I have had to make about 50 million decisions. You know, are we doing double-sided jackets? Are we doing one design across the sprayed edges, or 3 designs, you know? So like all of these tiny little decisions, but they add up because there were dozens and dozens and dozens of them. Now, little tip, what we are doing is we are using this next Kickstarter as the template. So whatever the standard is that we create, however we configure the book, that is going to be the standard going forward. So we're going to have that in, I guess, a template, for want of a better word. We'll just kind of have all the configurations there. And then that will be the expectation of the Kickstarters going forward. Only we will then decide if we're adding or removing elements. Mostly just adding because I like to better myself, right? But anyway, I'm now going into my own update instead of saying thank you very much for the comment. Wow, I am squirrel brained today. But yes, the point, circling back to the point, this is chaos. I do feel so much better. I feel I have done some socializing as well. Like I've had dinners with friends. I've gone and visited friends who've been to the cinema and had dinner and all those kinds of things. So I kind of feel like, you know, I'm not stuck in the house constantly just grinding against whatever it is we grind against. I have also been implementing stupid walks for my stupid mental health. So I went for a walk today. I went for a walk. Wait, what day is it? Is it Tuesday? Yeah, so I did a walk yesterday as well. And I have been going to the gym. The gym is a little bit up and down just because there are some mornings that are, you know, I've had meetings and things, and then it sort of gets too late and I feel like I'm in work mode and then I can't quite bring myself to go in the middle of the day, but I'm working on that. That's a mindset thing. It's a me problem. But yeah, I feel like, so going back to the Kickstarter and the decision making, I'm exhausted this afternoon from all those decisions, and that kind of exhaustion is what I was feeling previously. And I think when you have a period of growth, you have to make so many decisions about business structures, outsourcing, systems setups, that it is grueling mentally. So I was going to bed earlier. I was sleeping for such a long time. Like, I've never been I've always slept for about 7 hours naturally, like that. I will naturally wake up after just over 7 hours. And I was, you know, some nights I was doing like 9-10 hours because my brain was just like, saturated, swollen, can't take it anymore. Now I'm kind of coming out of that and things are becoming more established, and because I have more help, the days are easier. So yesterday was fucking glorious. I literally feel like I lived the dream yesterday. I got up, I went to the gym, I came back, and it was a research day, so I was doing research for the new series, and that is one of my favourite bits because I get to spend loads of time on the market and on Amazon and Publisher Rocket and looking at covers and titles and playing with Midjourney and creating mood boards and all the rest of it. And I just had so much bloody fun. And then I went for a walk at lunch, and then I came back and continued to do that. And then I read in the evening, like, living the fucking dream. My poor wife came. Well, I shouldn't laugh. It's literally not funny. But this is nervous laughter. My poor wife came back and she'd had a fucking awful day. So I was, she's like, oh, how was your day? And I was like, yeah, it was, I should not be laughing. Thank God she doesn't listen to this. It's nervous laughter. Because obviously I wanted to make her day better, and she's having a tough time at work, so didn't really know what to say. You know what it's like when you're in corporate and you have a shitty day. Anyway, so I am so much better. I feel like the life force is coming back to me. I'm also in my element because I really thoroughly enjoy starting new projects. Well, almost as much as I like finishing them. But I suppose that's because I have both achiever and activator. Everybody drink. So I get a lot of energy from finishing projects and a lot of energy from starting projects. Not so much in the sticky middle. But anyway, so what am I doing? I am on the countdown to Vegas Author Nation. And so over the next 2.5 weeks, is it only 2.5 weeks? It's literally only, it's only 2.5 weeks. Oh my God. So over the next 2.5 weeks, I need to write both of the Kickstarter bonus smutterlogs. And I also need to outline the bonus for the next year's Kickstarter, or the first of next year's Kickstarters, because I want to do it before this time. My whole goal, so I've been doing a lot of planning. Wow, this is a long intro, but anyway, enjoy. One of the things that I am is paramount for next year is for me to get ahead, which means I need to say no to everything. And I said no to some stuff this morning, which, well done, Sasha, who even are you? But I need to get ahead so that I can have more marketing time on the pre-launch periods. There are things that I want to do that I'm unable to do when I keep fucking chucking books through the publishing machine as soon as I finish them. So I've done planning, we've set a new publishing schedule, we've got Kickstarters planned for next year, and like everything is so exciting. I can't even, I'm so excited. I literally feel like I'm like shaking my hands in giddy excitement whilst I'm talking to you, because I'm just so fucking buzzed. We've got so many plans and I don't have to implement them. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to just put a strategy out there and have this fucking incredible team to help implement and do a lot of the stuff. I'll be doing little bits, but mostly I will just be doing the creative bit in the back end and the decision making, obviously. But anyway, yes, I'm full of joy and full of excitement and full of the buzz of a new project, and I'm basically seeing stars. I've gotten myself into such a worked up, excited state. I am a child. I am literally a child. I need to calm down. All right, I'm moving on. No, I'm not moving on, because you can pre-order House of Crimson Curses either direct from me or on all of the platforms. It is going to release on the 5th of December. It is the last book in the trilogy. You will meet the protagonist for the next series. Oh my God, I'm so excited. She's so cool. I think I have a crush on my new character. So God knows how saucy this next book's going to be. Wait, what does that say about... Anyway, let's move on. Yes, okay, so last little bits is we are in the Kickstarter fulfillment. The funding has been released. So this is one last thing. The Kickstarter sounds like an amazing number because it was huge. It was 55,910 English pounds. We did have a couple of backers back via other channels. But broadly speaking, let's just use that figure because it's the public figure. That's not what's transferred. And obviously that's not going to be what's left over. And I want to be open. Maybe I'll do like a lessons learned or something on that. I don't know. But what's been transferred is £50,538. So you can already see that a big chunk has gone, and that's in Stripe fees, Kickstarter fees and lost pledges. Although we actually ended up only with £527 of lost pledges. So that's pretty fucking amazing. And that's definitely down to Petra. So huge thanks to her. So yeah, I will keep you updated on that. I'll keep you updated on the costs and the spend for production. And maybe I'll do a little wrap up at some point before the end of the year once we are pretty much through to fulfillment. Okay, the Rebel of the Week this week is Lena. Lena says, earlier this year I attended a local writing conference here in the US. The theme was jazz and the roaring 20s. For the most part, that just meant Art Deco designs and some table decorations. Sure, fine, whatever. On Saturday night, the banquet was going to be a costume party. Fitzgerald and the Great Gatsby were plastered all over the invite. I didn't want to wear a flapper dress or pinstripe suit. Neither of those are my style. I almost decided not to dress up at all until I remembered an old costume I'd had in my closet since college that would technically fit the time period. Even up until the event started, I almost backed out. I sat in my car until it was time, then decided I should just go for it. So I turned up to the dinner with a ratty black coat that was too small, a torn and poorly knotted necktie, pants that were several sizes too big, and giant shoes. Add to that a bamboo cane, a derby hat, and some black and white makeup. Yes, I went as the little tramp himself, Charlie Chaplin, standing next to scores of sequin gowns and pinstripe suits with a I'm laughing because the photos are, hopefully I'll get Becca to double check that the photos can go in the show notes, but they are spectacular. And I just have an image of Lena next to ladies in sequin dresses. This is amazing. Standing next to scores of sequin gowns and pinstriped suits with a costume I'd assembled from pieces I'd found at a thrift store. I stood out like a sore thumb and I loved it. Fuck yeah, you did. So did everyone else. I completely stole the show. Fuck yes, you did. And yes, I can even do the walk. People were still stopping me the next day to tell me how awesome my costume was. It really is awesome. The guest of honour added great costume to my signed book. I've attached some pictures and yes. So hopefully we can add these. We will get permission before we share them, but Lena looks fucking brilliant. What a cracking rebellion. If you would like to be the Rebel of the Week, please do send in your story. It can be any kind of rebellion, something big, something small, or something in between. You can email your Rebel story to Becca over on rebelauthorpodcast@gmail.com. Welcome and a big thank you to new patron Elle Thorpe, and of course a giant thank you to all of my existing patrons. If you would like to support the show and get early access to all of the episodes as well as bonus content, you can from as little as $2 a month by visiting patreon.com/Sasha Black. Enough from me, let's get on with the episode. Hello and welcome to the Rebel Author Podcast. Today I'm joined by A.L. Brody, also known as Jason Pinter. Jason grew up loving classic monster movies, and despite a love of watching teenagers get dispatched on screen in ever more creative and horrifying ways, he is deep down a romantic at heart. As A.L. Brody, he is the author of Dating and Dismemberment and The Reaper's Son, and as Jason Pinter, a number of best-selling acclaimed thrillers. He lives with his family in a cave in a swampy hellscape, aka New Jersey. Hello and welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me from my swampy hellscape in New Jersey.
I have to say, for a swampy hellscape, the office looks great.
It does, thank you. We had to raise it, though, to be above the swamp water, so it looks pretty good right now.
Yeah, okay, I see what you did there. Yeah, it's working for you, I won't lie.
Thank you very much.
Well, before we kind of talk about monster romance, would you like to tell everyone a little bit about you and how you got to where you are today?
Absolutely, sure. So I've been working in books in some manner or shape basically since I graduated college. I've worked as a book publishing professional in editorial and marketing and publicity at different publishing houses, including three of the big five. And I published my first book back in 2007. So I've actually been doing this kind of a while. I wrote five books in my Henry Parker series, several books in my Rachel Marin series, a couple standalone books like The Castle and Past Crimes, and I released my first book under my pseudonym A.L. Brody last summer called Dating and Dismemberment, which was quite a departure from me. I really, before that, focused on sort of like thrillers and suspense, and this was full on monster romance, cozy fantasy, and I absolutely loved every second of it. So it's been sort of a really cool journey to kind of having been published for so long, but then to completely sort of pivot and do something totally different and to see readers embrace it the way they have.
And so I'm already going to divert off the questions. So I didn't realize that you had worked in publishing as well. So what were the biggest lessons that you've learned about publishing or the market or the industry
Oh man.
from that time?
I would say, in terms of editing, I'm a very good self-editor, and I came from a publishing position where I have been an editor before. So I've worked with dozens and dozens of authors on manuscripts from everything from overall to content to structure to character development to plot to the nitty gritty line editing and grammar and things like that. So I'm a very good self-editor, and that's really important to me. Is that when I work with authors, I try to incorporate any lessons that I tell them to my own writing. I try to be very self-critical reading a book. And if I think something is not working, to figure out how to kind of change that to make it work. And if it's really not working, then maybe it just needs to either go completely or be changed in some way. So I would say learning how to edit and how to be a self-editor comes from a lot of time working with other authors and trying to use the lessons that I've given to them for my own work.
I love that. Anything that you kind of took from the business side, I suppose, like and being exposed to because
Mm,
there's very different industries. Like, yes, we produce
yes.
the same thing, but it's kind of like, chalk and cheese, really, trad to indie. So yeah, any kind of business learnings that you've brought across to your indie books.
Yeah, I would say never chase the market because the market is always shifting. I think there are a lot of times there are big trends that kind of come and go. Like obviously, romanticy is having a big moment right now. I remember I've been in the industry long enough when the Da Vinci Code came out, and suddenly sort of like these big globe hopping kind of religious thrillers were having a moment. And there's so many ebbs and flows that I've learned that to I think be successful, you need to write the book that you want to write and then figure out how to market it. Because if you, I think, write a book that you want to market, but sort of there's a lack of passion there, or you're sort of doing it because you feel like you have to for the market, it's going to show. And I think part of the reason I've had some success, especially with Dating and Dismemberment, is that I think my passion for the book and why I wrote it really comes through. And I think people see that and are willing to kind of take a chance on it. So I think that's one thing. One thing I tell authors is that write what you love and then find a way to market it rather than the other way around.
Oh, I don't know if I agree with you. I agree in part. And this is why I love this. And this is why I asked this question, because I think it's so interesting when you see people from different perspectives, like in the industry.
Mhm.
So the one thing that I really, really agree with is writing the book that you really want to write, like writing a book
Yeah.
that you're passionate about, because I agree with you. I totally believe that you can see it in the words and on the page if people aren't passionate about it. Where I slightly disagree is that
Mhm.
I think that particularly for indie authors, they want to sell
Yeah.
books. Most of them want to sell, not all of them. Most of them want to write full time, not all of them. But for those that do, selling a large number of books is really important. So
Mhm.
I think a hybrid of what you're saying is the best way forward. So they come up with an idea, and have this passionate story that they want to write that they shape as to market as they can get without destroying the integrity
Yeah.
of the art and the soul in the idea. That's kind of,
Yeah.
I think that is the because if you go into if you finish a book and you haven't thought about the market, you haven't thought about the marketing, you don't know how to sell
Yeah.
that book. So then you've wasted months without any idea of how to market. Whereas if you think about that before you start drafting, you can, edit, tweak, shave, insert, stitch a few things here and there to make it more marketable without losing the heart of what I think that you love. But
Yeah.
I love this.
I don't disagree with you at all, and I think that's sort of where my background sort of because I came from a traditional publishing background, so I think you're absolutely right. Where I came from a background of if you want to be traditionally published, I think you go about it the other way. I think you write the book that you want to write, and then it's up to your publisher to market it, and hopefully they find a way for it, whether it's mystery, horror, fantasy, romance, literary fiction, what have you. I think more of that onus is on the publisher if you're going to be traditionally published. I do fully agree with that. If you're going to be independently published and you want to market it, you need to see what's working in the market, what's working in terms of the books and the tropes and the cover design. And I think independent authors are some of the most business savvy people I've ever met in my entire life. And I cannot tell you, I've worked in traditional publishing for 15, 20 years, and I still learn things from indie authors every single day. And I love that kind of the hybrid mindset that I have right now, where I may continue in traditional publishing, but I love the indie mindset of just working on a book and sort of like you said, the hybrid of what am I writing? How am I going to market it to make it successful? And finding the middle ground between the two of those. But I fully agree. And I think the independent authors that I've spoken to, they have this incredible passion for their books, but are also absolutely brilliant at marketing them. And I feel like I want to take 50 indie authors that are successful and bring them into a traditional publishing meeting and just have them like lecture it. Like, this is what we do well. This is what you can learn, because for somebody who's been in the industry for as long as I have, to learn so much from these authors who are doing everything almost on their own is really incredible. Just the work ethic and business sense. Because if you're going to be an independent author, you are running your own small business and you have to act like that.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. And so you sort of talked about trends and things there and the fact that romantasy was having its day. The other thing that's sort of having its moment, albeit maybe a slightly smaller moment, is monster romance. And you took quite a fucking swing from thrillers to monster romance. Like, what happened? Why?
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me.
So I'm going to be honest with you. When I wrote Dating and Dismemberment, I did not know Monster Romance was having a moment. And this is sort of where you talk about, I did not write this book to market for better or worse. I think the reason I wrote this book is I'd written a lot of really dark thrillers. And I think over the past, before I wrote D&D, I had written a book called Past Crimes, which was like a really disturbing dystopian sci-fi thriller, which are pretty dark thrillers. And it was also in the midst of the pandemic. And like a lot of people, I was just sort of struggling and with my emotions and feeling sort of lonely and disconnected from everybody. And I wanted to write a book that just made me happy. And that was really it. That was and I started thinking about, like, I want to write a book that's going to bring me joy, that's going to be fun and lighthearted and enjoyable. And I just came upon this idea of I wanted to write a romance or romantic comedy featuring essentially embodiments of these classic monsters that I grew up loving. And what if you had this great character, Darla Drake, who's my main character, who is this legendary feared monster, but like us, she's sort of wondering what is she going to do with the rest of her life. She has a bit of an existential crisis as the book is opening. And then this guy comes in and tries to kind of take over her territory, and they become enemies to lovers. And there's so much more to her character. I love giving these monsters who are sort of like inherently campy and funny and dangerous, but creating this whole world around this, almost like Monsters Inc. for adults, where in Monsters Inc. they created this whole big monster world. And so I was sort of like, how does that work with traditional sort of stalker crazy monsters? What if they have this world, and what if they have friends and family, and there's this whole ecosystem there, and they fight over territories? And it was the perfect melding to me of interesting characters, fun characters with sort of like Beetlejuice vibes, sort of like wacky and crazy, but then creating this whole world around them, but also making sure there was a real heart beneath it. That even if I was going to make the story with sort of like monsters falling in love, there's going to be some emotion there too. And all of that together just got me so excited. I wrote the whole thing in, I want to say, less than 3 months, because it was every day. I want to go back to the story. I want to write more about these monsters. I want to learn more about them. I'm having so much fun with this. And so I really did not think about whether I was sort of, as I was writing it, then I was starting to think about the marketing. How am I going to market this book? And I started realizing that books, not only were monster romance having a moment, but cozy fantasy was having a moment. So books like Legends and Lattes and Rebecca Thorne's Can't Spell Treason Without Tea were having a moment. I was like, okay, I can do that. There's an audience for monster romance. There's an audience for sort of cozy fantasy. At the time, I was really building a following on TikTok. And with all three of those together, I was like, I think I can market this book really well. And I think I worked really hard to do that once the book was done. And that's really where it came from.
So you're a TikTok author as well?
Yes, I am, which is weird because like I'm a dude in my 40s, and you don't think about that. Like, well, yes, TikTok is book talk is all dudes in their 40s. Is absolutely not. I am very much an outlier there.
Yeah, you
But
are.
I am. But at the same time, like I started getting active, I want to say maybe a year and a half ago. And I started making these videos, sort of poking fun at how bad a lot of men write women. And the videos went super viral. And I started doing whole series on them, and I started kind of expanding them. And I built an audience. And I think people embraced the fact that I was a dude who understood what women were thinking and understanding. And I can kind of poke fun at sometimes how bad men write women, because I really do take a lot of pride in the fact that I try to write really good, fleshed out, interesting, three-dimensional women. And then when Dating and Dismemberment came out, I was fortunate enough that I had a pretty big platform on there where enough people found out about the book, and then when they read it, they really liked it and help spread the word. But yeah, I'm not your typical TikTok author.
Okay, so when we were off air, we had a little bit of a conversation, and you've kind of mentioned some of the things that you did really well to market, which were publishing in a time of cozy fantasy, publishing, albeit, serendipitously, monster romance in an era of monster romance.
Yeah.
What didn't you do to market?
What didn't I do to market it?
Yeah, no, to market. So we mentioned there was like some comments about the romance that
Yeah.
wasn't to market. So talk
Oh,
about that
so
lesson
I
that you
oh so
learned.
I would say the one thing I didn't do that I sort of maybe wish I had is that the book is not super spicy. There's there is some kind of, like I said, like heavy makeout sessions, and there is like romance, but there's not a lot of spice in the book. And I would say for all the people that have loved the book, and thankfully like the readers have loved it, the one criticism I've gotten is that I wish there was more spice or more spunk in it. And I will say that when I wrote it, I was going for sort of more like Beetlejuice vibes or Shaun of the Dead vibes or Warm Bodies vibes, which is a little more kind of like, I guess, campy humor. And it was like, to me, I wanted to differentiate myself from authors like Ruby Dixon, who are doing monster romance really well and killing it. And their books are really spicy. And I was like, I wanted to do something that was more campy and funny. Now, what I think I realized that you can have both, absolutely. But I didn't really in this book, for better or worse. But I say that's the one thing people have been saying, like they wanted more spice. They love the characters and the world and the writing, but they wanted a little more spice. And that's something where I made a decision, and I, looking back, maybe it wasn't the right decision, but it is what it is now. But I'm also learning so that in future books, like they need a
Monster
little
dick.
alone time with Darla, a little more about some. I mean, listen, Jarko has extendable tentacles. Like we need to use those.
Yeah, you do. You do. I think
Yeah,
this is
I
so
mean,
interesting.
there's some inferences to it in Dating and Dismemberment, but we don't see the full tentacle bomb.
Yeah. Favorite quote of this episode. Um, no, I love it. And I think, do you know what? I think you are a victim of book talk. That is what I think. Like book talk, because I'm a book talker. Well, I'm a
Mhm.
TikToker who happens to be an author who's, promoting to book talk. But, I as am a admittedly smart reader. And
Mhm.
I think that is the predominant audience on TikTok. So by the fact that you built an audience on TikTok, they are always going to encourage you to add spice. So are you going to do that? Is that what's
Yes, and it's sort of funny. So one of the things I thought was that Legends and Lattes had also come out and done really well. And even though that's sort of more cozy fantasy, sort of like I guess like more fantasy, I read that book and there's no spice in that whatsoever. I think there's maybe like one chaste kiss or something. So I was like, okay, like you can sort of not have that level of spice in the books and still do well. And that book got big on TikTok also.
but it's also not a
But I
romance.
there's romance in it. I would
I've
say
read
it's more
it.
finding yourself. Yeah, it's more like but yeah. So I figure like I don't need to have spice. But that said, I listen to people, and there is some spice in chapter one of the sequel to Dating and Dismemberment.
Good move.
Yeah. But not only that, but I think it was also in the first book they're building their relationship, and they're hesitant and tentative around each other, and in the second book they're more comfortable with each other and just more willing to go full on octodom. So
Oh my God, I love it. Okay, so in terms of like your craft and writing thrillers versus writing monster romance, are you still doing both?
At the moment, no, because I self-published Dating and Dismemberment last summer 2023, and it was actually pretty soon after that when I was approached by Entangled Publishing about them acquiring Dating and Dismemberment and reissuing it. At the time, I was sketching out a trilogy for these books, and the plan was to do it independently. Obviously, that was if like Dating and Dismemberment came out and sold 2 copies. I don't know if I'd want to waste a year writing a trilogy, but once they wanted to acquire it and they could get that distribution out there, I wanted to write that trilogy. So I'm in the midst of finishing up the trilogy right now. So book 2 is scheduled for, I want to say, February 2025, and then book 3 is for summer 2025. So I have 2 more books in the series coming out within the first half of 2025. So I'm finishing that up, and then I'm turning to what I want to do next. And I'm sort of unsure about whether it's the kind of thing that I want to potentially pitch to traditional publishers, or if I'm just having a lot of fun doing it indie. I will say this, I have an idea for a really good, dark, spicy romance thriller trilogy, sort of like interconnected standalones. That's just going to be like crazy, spicy. I sort of call it like John Wick meets Hunting Adeline. And that's just going to be absolutely sort of bonkers in terms of spice. And I really love the idea I have for that. So I may turn to that right after I'm done with Dating and Dismemberment. And that would probably be indie too, because I feel like Dating and Dismemberment was a bit of pushing a boulder uphill in terms of, like you said, sort of like, book talk. As much as I love it, there's an expectation there. Dating and Dismemberment may not have the level of spice some people like. This book would have that in spades, and I think it would be an easier book to market.
Okay, so in terms of the writing of a thriller versus writing your monster romance, have you got the same process? Do you write the books in the same way? Are there any craft kind of differences that you've learned or experienced? Yeah, talk to me about the craft of like that shift and the similarities or differences.
Well, I think it depends. So I've written mostly contemporary thrillers. My Henry Parker series, my Rachel Marin series are both contemporary. They're set in the real world. So writing those, I had to do a lot of research in terms of forensics and logistics and location, things like that. My book Past Crimes was sort of a dystopian thriller, so I had to do a lot of world building there. And I think actually that book helped me write Dating and Dismemberment, because even though Past Crimes is set in the real world, set in the future, I had to create all these things out of thin air and research them to make them make sense. Dating and Dismemberment, I would say Dating and Dismemberment was easier because it was a little more lighthearted than a lot of my darker stuff. I feel like to get into that mindset, I got in too far a little bit. For Past Crimes, because a lot of it is actually based around true crimes. I had to do a lot of research on some of those horrific true crimes ever, and it messes with your head a little bit. So I think after that, I needed to write Dating and Dismemberment, to write a book that was just fun and sort of joyful. I wrote Dating and Dismemberment really fast. I would say Past Crimes, which was my last traditionally published book, took almost a year and a half to write, and Dating and Dismemberment took less than 3 months. So I would just say it's for whatever reason, I found that book a lot easier to write and a lot smoother to write.
Okay, so moving to like craft advice for listeners, how do they create a realistic monster? Like, how do you create a monster that people don't hate? Do you have any like craft tips to share?
Yeah, honestly, that was the most fun part, is because even though these monsters go around and they're delimbing people, I wanted people to like them. And if they're just going around killing people and they have no personality and there's nothing interesting about them, why are people going to care? So I knew that my main character, Darla Drake, has an existential crisis on basically page 1. And everybody in the world can relate to having a bit of an existential crisis at some point, just sitting there thinking, what am I meant for? Where am I going? What happens next? Am I really doing with my life what I want to be doing with it? And I love the idea of this monster we've all seen like Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees, and they don't have existential crises. They don't sit, Freddy doesn't knife someone to death and think like, is this really what I'm meant to do? So I love the idea of a monster just being like, is this all there is? And it's so relatable to me. And as much as these characters are sort of crazy and live in this bonkers monster world, they have real interior lives to them. So Darla has a really touchy relationship with her mother because she's following in her mother's footsteps, and her mother has expectations for her that Darla isn't sure if she wants to follow. She maybe doesn't want to be like her mother. So on one hand, she wants to make her mother proud and make her happy and doesn't want to let her down, but she doesn't want to be like her. And then she also has her father left them when she was a lot younger, and she still has unresolved trauma from her father leaving her. So there are these real issues underneath the sort of chaos. And I think that to me is what made the characters real to me, is that I wanted them to be sort of crazy and unhinged and deadly and fun, but I really did want there to be sort of like a pathos beneath them. So that was where the monster, sort of the realism, came to me. Same thing with Legends and Lattes. Viv wants to reinvent herself, and she is being sort of like this, marauding orc. All I want to be, maybe I want to open a coffee shop. Same thing with Darla. Darla's like, I've been this monster beheading all these camp counselors for years. Is that really all I want? And maybe she does want that, but maybe she wants more too. And it was also, in terms of the romance was going to be a really big and important part of the book, but I didn't want that to be the only thing that Darla wanted. She has a lot of things that she wants in her life. She wants self-fulfillment. She wants to care about herself. She wants to be more confident. And so the romance aspect could not be the only thing that she wanted. She wasn't just single-minded. And in fact, she doesn't even really want romance at the beginning. It's more just the romance comes into her life and she says, maybe this is what I've been missing, somebody to kind of share this life with. And to me, that made the characters that much more relatable and interesting.
Did you have to spend any time justifying? So, like, obviously, there's an element of like moral grayness if they're like beheading people and stuff. So, how do you make a character that should? I mean, obviously, you've talked about like that interiority and like them having wants and desires. Are there any kind of tricks to balancing moral grayness?
That was even before I started writing the book. That was my biggest concern, is that if Darla goes around just killing all these innocent people, people aren't going to like her. And so I changed it up a little bit and actually had fun with sort of the tropes of horror movies, where in classic horror movies, you look at the original Friday the 13th, or even the Friday the 13th movies, like the bad guy in the original Friday the 13th is Jason's mother, and she goes around killing camp counselors who are having sex and doing drugs. And so I like to play with that a little bit, where Darla herself is really only killing people who really need to be killed. And she has this conversation with her mother where she's like, I don't like the way you did things in the past, where you just kind of kill everybody, regardless of what they're doing. I want to change things. And her mother's like, we didn't know any better. And it's sort of like almost the way the culture changes too, where there's certain things that people did or said 30, 40, 50 years ago that you wouldn't do now. So she has this whole conversation with her mother, where her mother's like, listen, we were naive back then. We may have just killed everybody because they were smoking and drinking and doing drugs. Darla's like, no, I don't want to do that. These people don't deserve to be killed. So there's a scene where she and Jarko actually go to a bar on one of their dates, and they sort of flirt well, killing a whole bar full of neo-Nazis. And I love that so much, because these are people that deserve to be delimbed. And there's this whole great flirtatious murder scene where they go to this bar and just destroy this whole bar full of terrible people. So I like the idea that Darla was a monster, but she wasn't evil, if that makes sense. Because I think if she was just straight up evil, people wouldn't care about her as much, and they certainly wouldn't follow her for 3 books. So I like sort of showing how the culture, even the culture of monsters, has changed between generations, how what her mother did isn't necessarily how Darla's going to do it. And that creates friction between them.
Have you, like, random tangent, have you read Assistant to the Villain?
I have actually. It's actually the same. It's the same publisher too.
Okay, interesting. I'm literally reading it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny. I'm literally, that's so cool. Yeah, I'm literally, it's on my desk and I'm reading it right now. And I think it has to go down as the most highlighted book of the year. And I'm only halfway through, so no spoilers. But as you're talking, what strikes me is something that Hannah Nicole does as well, which is brings in humor. Like that kind of scene in the bar sounds funny to me.
Yes.
And something that Hannah does is, I don't think I have laughed this much reading a book about what should theoretically be 2 evil people. And so I wanted to ask you, like, how do you write funny? How do you get that humor in there? How do you create that when you're talking about monsters who kill people?
Oh, I've wanted this book to be so funny, and I like when same thing when readers will email me. I've had readers actually like take pictures of highlighted pages with all the sort of like lines that they've underlined. It would really was sort of like to me Monsters Inc. for grown-ups. And it was just it's almost like can't have you ever seen the movie Can't Hardly Wait? Where
Mm-mm.
it's like it's these people that on one side they're these cruel monsters who everybody is terrified of, but interior they're they have issues, and I thought there was a huge dichotomy there, and I thought that inherently is funny. To have these horrible monsters being like, what do I want to do with my life? So the idea of like Darla Drake's mother, Dolores, is actually a severed head, and we find out why she's a severed head. But Darla lives with her mother, Dolores, and her mother's this sort of cranky, overbearing mother, but she's also happens to be a severed head. So they have all these conversations about what Dolores wants Darla to do with her life and all these goals that she has for. Meanwhile, she's just a severed head. So they have all these funny conversations about how that happened and things like that. And then all the different monsters, and they all have different backstories and how they look. And it really, I wanted to play up the romantic comedy aspect of it. That they really are, this really is kind of like enemies to lovers, where Darla and Jarko, the two main characters, hate each other to begin with, but then fall for each other as they're doing what would be these terrible things. Like it could easily be switched around where the book could be from the perspective of one of the campers or counselors, and it'd be a be a horror movie. But I love taking the opposite look. And I felt that if you create this world with these monsters where they're weird and funny and they have the same sort of inhibitions and problems that we do, there was an inherent humor in that, and that to me is where it came from. And so, like, I love when readers like they send me snapshots of pages, or they send videos of themselves like laughing as they're reading it. So that's exactly what I wanted to do, just sort of like the sort of Beetlejuice, Shaun of the Dead vibes.
Yeah, I think Hannah, when I just read past a bit where the villain is afraid of the dark, which obviously is that same
Yeah,
dichotomy, kind of
yeah,
juxtaposing like evil and something that's very, very innocent kind of thing.
yeah.
Um, okay, you have a lot of books in print. How have you reached your audience? What kind of marketing things have you learned over the years that have helped you reach such a huge number of readers?
I would say covers are hugely important. That's really really important. I think that's helped. I've had really good covers. I also take a lot of pride in feeling that I feel like I have a good eye for design. So especially with Dating and Dismemberment, I really wanted the book to have an awesome cover. So I hired Nicole Gu, who's an Eisner nominated illustrator, to design the cover for Dating and Dismemberment, and it's so good that Entangled is actually keeping the cover for it from the self published edition. And it's usually pretty rare when an indie book gets picked up. They usually change the cover because the book may look a little too indie. They're like, no, this is like, why would we want to change this? So I think design is really important. I think being active on social media is hugely important. I think given the traditional book coverage has been slashed so much from the past 10, 15, 20 years, the mainstream coverage is just, it doesn't exist anymore. There's so few book sections and so few newspapers that cover books that unless you're, a Good Morning America pick or a Read with Jenna pick or Reese Witherspoon pick, you're not going to get that level of marketing or publicity. And you kind of have to do it on your own. So one of the things that I take pride in, especially for Dating and Dismemberment, was when I'm going to market the book, I don't just do, hey, here's my book, buy it. I try to make the videos and the marketing actually kind of funny. I try to do videos that people will want to kind of pass around to each other, they'll forward to their friends. And you don't do that if it's just like, hey, buy my book. So I really try to make marketing that's engaging, that's interesting, that's kind of funny, where people will actually kind of want to share it. So I think that's something that I've been pretty good at. I think the books themselves are good. I think I try to write books that are both really propulsive but also have really interesting and fleshed out characters, but then promote them and market them in a way that is going to reach a wider audience.
So let's talk a little bit about that actual video making and promoting. How are you using TikTok? Like, how often do you post? Like, what is kind of your strategy there?
I've been posting a lot recently because I've been not only promoting the reissue of Dating in Dismemberment, which comes out October 8th. It may already be out by the time this goes live, but I also just released a book called The Reaper's Son on August 8th. So I've been sort of promoting The Reaper's Son, which is available, and the reissue of Dating in Dismemberment, which comes out less than 2 months later. Um, I honestly, I found TikTok to be a creative outlet for me. I think that's how I started to get big on it. I just started having fun with it. I said, you know what? I'm going to be weird. I'm going to try to be funny. And thankfully, people embraced that. At first, I went onto it because everyone was saying, oh, TikTok is where all the readers are. And as a writer and as a kind of a bookish person, I was like, I don't want to just talk about TikTok. I want to understand it. So at first, I didn't know what I was doing. I was posting videos like that were not trendy at all, that were just sort of didn't make any sense. It was really when I started to sort of let my inhibitions down and my guard down and letting myself be seen as kind of weird and funny and vulnerable that I started to build an audience. So it was really that is so it's a combination of promoting my books, but in a way that I think will hopefully engage people and people will find funny or interesting. Talking about myself enough that people will see there's sort of depth behind, even if I'm writing sort of a crazy monster romance, that there are a lot of layers to me that can make me more relatable. And then just things that I enjoy or things that I like to promote. So I think any good feed is going to be, 1/3 promoting what you've written, 1/3 about yourself, and then 1/3 about things that you like to kind of spread the love amongst other books or movies or TV shows. And I really like it. I found a community there. And even though I'm sort of not the typical TikTok author, everyone there has kind of embraced me for whatever reason. I'm just sort of glad to be here.
No, I've just gone on and had a look and I've just followed you. So, on the practical end though, how many times a day do you post? Like, what are we talking about?
I would say I try to post generally around, I say it twice a day.
Okay.
I'll do one that's maybe promotional and then one that is not promotional. And then that's going to be either just sort of like one of my weird sort of men writing women videos or something along in that vein, or something that's a little more heartfelt and vulnerable. I talk a lot about mental health on there. When I have a new book coming out, maybe I'll post like maybe 3 times a day. So I would say generally 2 to 3 times a day, and I try to alternate between marketing and then talking about myself or doing something that's sort of more entertainment where it'll engage people to follow me and then check out my stuff.
Yeah, amazing. No, I love it. I'm a three a day minimum. Like I will do. And it's really interesting because I've got another friend, AK Mulford, they're on TikTok as well, and they kind of do like queer romantasy. But they have managed to find an audience too, and like a community, not just an audience, but a community on there. Whereas I've really, really struggled to do that. I kind of have a community on Instagram, but TikTok I find is much more useful just for like hard marketing. So yeah, it's been an interesting one for me. Okay then, so before I ask you the ultimate podcast question, any advice to people who want to switch genre?
I would say switch genres. Write what you want to write. For me, it was important to switch names too, and I think that's something that I want to talk about too, because I've written all my dark thrillers under the name Jason Pinter, but when I wrote Dating in Dismemberment and The Reaper's Son, I published them under the name A.L. Brody because I really wanted to create a different author life for books that were a little more fantastical or romance related. That you don't want to confuse your audience. You don't want people who are reading one of your genres to then buy another one of your books only to be completely different, or vice versa. People who read your new genre and love it and then go like, oh, wait, but those other books are completely different. So don't be afraid to essentially create 2 different author personas if you're going to change genres. And if you're going to change genres, make sure you know that genre well. Make sure that you know why you're writing it. And if you're going to be looking to do indie, make sure, as we talked about, make sure you know how to market it, because I think knowing how you're going to market it as you're writing is hugely important. You don't want to essentially have the book live and then start marketing it. I was marketing Dating in Dismemberment months before it came out because I wanted to build up awareness for it. Same thing with The Reaper's Son. I started marketing that book months before it came out. So I think that's hugely important. If you're going to write in a different genre that people don't know you in, you want to create an awareness and a buzz well before that comes out. And I think that's really important.
Is The Reaper's Son a direct sequel or not?
Reaper's Son is a standalone. It has nothing to do with Dating in Dismemberment.
Not in the same world.
No, not in the same world at all. Dating in Dismemberment is sort of monster romance, cozy fantasy. Reaper Sun is more paranormal romance, but it's much more emotional and grounded. It definitely has humor. It's also more, I would say, sort of like Addie LaRue meets The Fault in Our Stars, where it's much more grounded and emotional, whereas Dating and Dismemberment is more crazy, funny, romantic comedy. Reaper Sun is more like, it's funny, I tell people I wrote one romance that'll hopefully make you laugh in Dating and Dismemberment, and one romance that's going to make you cry in the Reaper Sun. And if you look on TikTok, there are all these readers. Chapter 35 in the Reaper Sun has become kind of infamous, where people read chapter 35 and then just bawl their eyes out. So I have all these people who posted videos of themselves live reading chapter 35, sort of a time lapse photography. And you can see them start the chapter, and then as they're reading the chapter, they just melt down. And by the end of it, they're just bawling. So it's like it's become a almost like we say community. These people post videos of themselves reading my book live and the reactions to them. And it's just like, if you told me people would be doing that 2 years ago, I would not have believed you. It's incredible.
Okay, well, this is the Rebel Author Podcast. So tell everyone about a time you unleashed your inner rebel.
It was self-publishing Dating and Dismemberment, a monster romance, romantic comedy, despite having written 10 dark thrillers, having never written anything like that before, building an audience on TikTok despite being a guy in my 40s, which is not the typical TikTok author, and having faith in myself to do that and spending a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of effort on a book that I believed in, that brought me joy, thinking it could bring that joy to other people, and really having faith in myself for that. The Dating and Dismemberment was never shopped anywhere. It was never shopped at publishers. My agent didn't even, I have a literary agent. My literary agent did not represent it. This was fully me just taking a shot at myself, saying that I think I can find an audience for this book. It's weird, but if people read it, they're going to love it. And that was just me completely taking a chance on myself. It could have backfired and I could have spent thousands of dollars and sold 10 copies, but I've made more money through the TikTok shop alone selling Dating and Dismemberment that I made from my last 3 traditional book deals and advances combined. And that was all just taking a shot on myself with this book.
So have you only sold the ebook rights to Entangled?
No, they're taking print rights too, because the one thing that I wish I had with Dating and Dismemberment was distribution. People can get it through Amazon. They can get it through my TikTok shop, but I've never seen this book in the wild. It's never been in a bookstore. I've seen it. There have been a couple of independent bookstores that have stocked it, but I'm not going to go to Columbus, Ohio or Canada just to kind of see the book on shelves, but they can get it into traditional bookstores. I think they're getting it into Target and Walmart. And those are things that are actually worth it for me. So they did take print rights, because I felt like I'd push Dating and Dismemberment as far as I could get it on my own. Now they have a chance to get it and expose it to an even wider audience.
Amazing. Well, tell everyone where they can find out more about you, your books, and anything else you'd like to add.
So aside from my swampy hellscape in New Jersey, you can go to my website, which is jasonpinter.com. You can find me on Instagram or Threads at Jason Pinter. I don't really use Twitter or X anymore because that's a swampy hellscape. Or on TikTok, I'm at Jersey Book Guy. I'd say I'm most active on TikTok. I'm getting more active on Instagram. I hadn't been for whatever reason. I think it was because I had more family members that follow me there, and I felt weird posting about like octodongs and tentacle dicks there. But I'm getting more comfortable with that too. So you can follow me on Instagram at Jason Pinter, TikTok at Jersey Book Guy.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And of course, a giant thank you to all of the show's listeners and all of the show's patrons. If you would like to get early access to all of the episodes, you can do so by visiting patreon.com/Sasha Black. I'm Sasha Black. You were listening to Jason Pinter /A.L. Brody, and this was the Rebel Author Podcast. This week, I'm joined by Celeste Barclay, and we're talking all about how to understand the consumer, and she was very specific about using that word, the consumer journey. So join me next week for that. Don't forget to tune in and subscribe on your podcatcher. And when you have a moment, please leave a review.